friends and enemies, and welcome back to the lair. In a little bit of a different corner of the lair, recognizing some of this. It's still up, so I thought I'd use it as a little bit of a background. And we're here to do some NerdPod Generations on YouTube. For those of you who don't know, NerdPod Generations is the latest and greatest podcast to come out. It stars myself, Alfred, and my buddy Steve Taylor. We talk about movies, we talk about TV, we talk about music, we talk about games, we talk about books, we talk about comics, we talk about canon, we talk about this, we talk about that. We talk about really all kinds of things. And here on YouTube is one more area for us to kind of expand and talk about things that we find interesting. Make sure that you like, comment, and subscribe, ring the bell, do all the things that YouTube wants you to do, and come back here because there's always going to be more content, whether it's movie reviews, whether it's some more projects. Go back and you can check out some of this. The story is still being worked on, unfortunately. I've been busy. What we're going to be talking about today, now that we've gotten all the YouTube spiel out of the way, is Young Justice Phantoms. This has been a long time coming. For anybody who listens to the podcast regularly, you know that I've talked about Young Justice Phantoms several times. This is the fourth and most recent season of Young Justice, which is a show that has had a tumultuous history and is very dear and special to my heart. So Young Justice Phantoms picks up, I want to say, like 8 to 14 months. It's fairly recently after season 3. You know what? I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's talk about what Young Justice is in case anybody doesn't know. So Young Justice came out in 2011, and Young Justice is a DC comic book superhero TV show, animated, which is kind of Teen Titans and kind of Justice League of America, but more than that, it's its own thing. It becomes its own monster because it handles issues and social things that the other shows may have referenced but never really got into. In the initial, written for kids, but as you go through it, really is more for adults, and especially the later seasons are definitely for adults. So Young Justice begins with Robin, Kid Flash, Aqualad finding Superboy in a Cadmus lab. They release him. They're joined by Miss Martian and Artemis, and they have a series of adventures that leads them against the Injustice League, that leads them against a far more devious villain, and leads to them having to fight the Justice League itself. What's interesting about Young Justice, though, is that the seasons are not necessarily one-to-one in terms of connectivity. Case in point, Season 2 of Young Justice takes place like 5 years after Season 1 of Young Justice. And we have a new Robin. Robin has graduated to Nightwing. Aqualad's a villain now. Artemis and Kid Flash have retired from the life. You have all kinds of things happening. And even more characters are introduced. There's so many characters in this. I can't even begin to go over them. There's so many characters, and they are all used to great effect. Whether it's Blue Beetle, whether it's Impulse, whether it's Kid Flash, whether it's Speedy. We see Jason Todd's Robin in their graveyard. They have a graveyard because of how many people have died. It's intense. And this is just season 2, and this is still playing with kid gloves, all things considered. Not fully. There's some really messed up stuff here if you dig down into it, but like a kid, they're not gonna know what's going on. But trust me, as an adult, there's some stuff here that you're like, whoa. So season 2 is all about this new alien force that's coming to Earth and how they're going to save the Earth from that, while also still dealing with Vandal Savage and Lex Luthor and all these other characters, and the betrayal of Aqualad and Miss Martian just full-on destroying people's brains, like using her psychic ability to just melt their brains and leave them in a comatose vegetative state. Like, there's so much here that's going on, and it's fucking great. And the writing's good, and the pacing's great, and the action is really fun. The voice acting is so freaking good, and the storytelling, the world building. Oh, I cannot express to you enough how amazing the world building is. This is a tour de force on world building because you can walk away and come back 5 years later in the story and still feel like you understand everything that's happening. There are, of course, those moments where you as a fan are like, hey, 5 years, that's a really long time. I wanted to see Tim Drake Robin, and I wanted to see Jason Todd Robin, and I wanted to see Ted Kort, and all these other things that I would have really loved to have seen that I'm just not going to get to see because we skipped over that period. So, you know, there is that element of it, but I think it all works in favor of the end goal, which is to tell this very intense, very adult, very mature story. I was about to say that there's no sex, but there is a lot of reference to sex. One of my favorite lines is, "I feel naked, but not in a fun way." So it's that kind of writing. It's that kind of writing where for kids, who cares? But for adults, everybody in the room is going to be like, holy shit. Season 3 is where we really, really move away from the idea of this being a kid's show. So let me give you a little bit of backstory. After season 2 came out, the executives behind the show looked at the toy sales and did that thing that was incredibly common and still is to degrees, I fear. I don't know that it hasn't stopped, but I have no reason to believe that it hasn't stopped. But they did that thing that's really annoying, where they looked at the toy sales and they looked at the audience engagement. And they said, well, this show is more engaging to girls than it is to boys, and girls don't buy as many action figures as boys do. Cancel it. Who cares that it's great? Who cares that it's one of the best written shows in the last decade? Who cares that it has character and arcs and amazing storytelling, and it uses all these things to talk about actual social issues in the world? Fuck it. We're not selling enough toys. Get it off the air. So Young Justice was canceled for years. And it wasn't until the ill-fated, short-lived, but very excellent DC Universe Infinite, whatever you want to call it, streaming service. There were several shows that came out for the DC Universe app that were amazing. I've talked about Swamp Thing on the podcast before, but you're here, so why not talk about it? It's fucking great. It's fucking great, and you can't find it streaming anywhere. It's not on HBO Max. I don't know where to find it. Doom Patrol. Doom Patrol's so good, man. Doom Patrol is so good. Thankfully, that got picked up by HBO Max. And Young Justice was one of those shows. So Young Justice returned as Young Justice Outsiders. That was the 3rd season of Young Justice. This picks up about 2 years after the events of Young Justice Season 2. So we have a little bit more closeness in the continuity in terms of where the characters are versus where they were. We don't have as many big leaps in terms of the storytelling. Biggest thing is that Aqualad is now Aquaman, and he's no longer part of the team. You have Zatanna and Rocket, who were, they joined the team very early on. They've now graduated to Justice League. So this season, not really about the same things that we've been doing the last few seasons, which is that you have this covert teenage ops unit that works alongside the Justice League in secret. It's sort of Teen Titans, but it's not. There's still a team. They never really name the team, which is a gripe that I have. I talk about how good the writing is, but they don't name the team. They just refer to it as the team, which is a little lame. It's I like names. I like identifiers, and I think that even if you called it Young Justice, which is a great name for a team, even if you did that, it would be better than calling it the team. I get that it's a covert ops team, so like you don't want to spread it around or put it on t-shirts. Cool, but like the team is a little blasé. So, but the team is still going strong. Nightwing has left the ranks. Aqualad has left the ranks. Really, it's just Miss Martian's game at this point. Superboy, I think, helps out on occasion. Everybody else has pretty much graduated to the Justice League, or they're no longer active in the case of Artemis, or they're dead. I won't say who dies. People die. The characters die in this shit. Or they're trapped in existential hells. That also happens on a fairly regular occasion. Or in some kind of middle ground where they both have a mind and body but don't have those things. There's a lot of existential dread in this show. But anyway, Season 3 finds Nightwing acting on his own. And he has some leads in a European country, there seems to be. And here we start to get into the real world analogs and similes between this show and ourselves. The 3rd season is about human trafficking. Now, granted, it's about human trafficking in the interest of being superhuman, so it's like, oh, these metahumans, they're captured, their metagene is activated, and then they're shipped off to Apocalypse, where Darkseid turns them into whatever he needs them to be so that he can conquer the universe, and Lex Luthor and Vandal Savage are running this whole ring. Right? That's the basic big plot, and then there's other elements of this. You get Granny Goodness, you get the anti-life equation. We even do Cyborg in Season 3, which, again, we do Cyborg like every other Tuesday, I feel like, so I don't know if we needed Cyborg here, but it's a little different. They did a little bit of a different thing here, which is kind of cool. They made him a father box. They go into Metron and all of the Source Wall and all that. Cool shit. Cool shit here, man. Hitting that Jack Kirby high, all right? Like, it's good stuff, man. The large part of the plot is Nightwing teaming up with Superboy and Artemis to end Black Lightning, who, Oh my god. It's a show that shit gets real fast in Outsiders. Young Justice Outsiders tells its audience immediately that any kid gloves that it was wearing, they're gone. This is a show made for adults. How do we know? Black Lightning kills a child in the first episode. Now granted, he doesn't know that it's a child. It looks like a lava monster. He doesn't know that it's a metahuman that's been captured and given to Vandal Savage and then given to Apocalypse and then rerouted, and then, you know, they encounter it on another planet and he electrocutes it and it dies because it had a heart issue. Because it was a 12-year-old girl with a heart issue who had been kidnapped and turned into this monster and then sent out with a control chip on her to execute the will of Darkseid. Like, it's... And then Black Lightning kills her. He is destroyed by this. The entire season he's destroyed by this. So he leaves the Justice League and he says, fuck this. We have gotten too far outside. People don't trust us anymore and I don't trust us anymore. Fuck it. How did we let something this bad happen? And now you have Batman who says, you know what, you're right. We are being too restricted by Lex Luthor and the UN. He's the special envoy to the UN. He's the head of the UN. But he's fighting to curtail metahumans and to keep the Justice League from doing their job by basically saying that if they go out and they save people, even if they're saving people, they're breaking the law, so therefore they are not allowed to enter these countries, even to save people. And Batman says, nah, fuck that. I'm taking all my people and I'm forming a secret Justice League and we're gonna do the real work. And so now you have 3 teams. You have 3 teams going on in this season. And they're all doing their own disparate things, and Nightwing is adopting children who are metahumans and need a home. You have a mother box that is also a main character in the plot. They go into abuse and parental abuse. They go into kind of emotional abuse and how someone good can be groomed and taken. We have Terra and we have Deathstroke, and there's just so much fucking good stuff here. And it has this great through line, and the story's really interesting and really dramatic, and there are definitely moments when you're just like, I don't know how this is gonna work out, man. This seems like it's not gonna work out, man. This seems like it's gonna be really bad, man. So season 4 is called Young Justice Phantoms. Young Justice Phantoms is actually a little different than the other seasons, and I deeply appreciate this. Young Justice Phantoms began coming out last year. It just finished its run about a month ago, I want to say. So the entire thing is now on HBO Max, and you should absolutely check it out, especially if you've seen the other seasons. Even if you haven't seen the other seasons, I'd still say watch season 3 because it's really good, and there's going to be a lot of characters you're not going to know if you just jump into season 4. But season 4 is... So they take the founding 7 members of Young Justice. So you have Zatanna, Robin, Dick Grayson, Rocket, Superboy, Miss Martian, Artemis, and Aqualad. Now Aquaman. There are 3 Aquaman in this world. And they openly are like, who fucking cares? There's a million Green Lanterns. We'll have 3 Aquaman. Who fucking cares? Anyway, what they do is they break this season down into, I believe it's 26 episodes, so they break it down into about 4 episodes per character, with the exception of Superboy. So the season starts, and you have Superboy, Beast Boy, and Miss Martian going to Mars so that Superboy and Miss Martian can get married. They encounter this whole thing about the different races on Mars and how there's this injustice among the races and how a lot of the people in charge just kind of choose to ignore or scapegoat the lower races, and how being of one race and committing an act can have a different effect than doing it as a different race. And even in a culture where shapeshifting is an inherent element of their identity, there's still a permutation of racism in it. Get ready, because that's 4 episodes of just like, hey, let's talk about that. Let's talk about what that means and maybe learn a few things while we also have this adventure on Mars. So then something happens. We cut to the next storyline, and what happens is this season's story is carried out 4 episodes at a time by one of the founding characters. So the first story arc, you have Superboy and Miss Martian. The second story arc is about Artemis and Orphan and Batgirl, and it's fucking great. The League of Shadows, it's good stuff. Third part is Zatanna, which is even better. That might be the best part of the season up until the very end. It's so good. It's so good. it's so good. So you have Zatanna, she's training a bunch of other magic users. She's graduated to the point where now she has students, and her both fighting a Lord of Chaos and also trying to sway fate to her ideals instead of its own. And on top of that, you get like this other story that's going on with Vandal Savage and his backstory and where he came from and the founding of Atlantis and all this other shit. Zatanna makes a discovery. We move on to the next storyline, which is Aqualad. Aqualad's stuff all takes place in Atlantis, and it's about him coming to terms with his own identity. It's interesting. Aqualad begins again. Season 1 and 2, they kind of wanted him to be more, I'll say mainstream, but I mean straight. By season 3, he's bisexual. Here, he's dating a man. It's all about his place and trying to figure out what he wants to do with his life and not allowing himself to mourn or grieve when something bad happens, and just like all the complications that come with leading this team, because he's the leader of the Justice League, man. He's got everything on his shoulders. So that one, it's not as good as his hand one, but it's still very good. It's still very emotional. It got a little lost, I think, at times with its long-term plot, where Ocean Master is there, but spoilers, Ocean Master died in season 3, so there's just like this kind of weird nebulousness to it, and it all comes out in the wash and you get it. But it's just one of those things where you're like, fifth storyline is Rocket, and Rocket goes to the New Gods. She is an envoy going to New Genesis with Jay Garrick Flash. Again, there's 2 Flashes currently in this world, 3 Aquaman, like 5 Green Lanterns. So Rocket goes to New Genesis, and we get all the wonder and glory of Jack Kirby's vision. And what I like about this, so I am a Marvelite by nature. I grew up on Marvel, I read Marvel, that was all I ever did was Marvel. In my teenage years, I started exploring DC. DC has always been that storyline where I know stuff, but I don't know everything, so there can still be surprises. I know Batman, I know Superman, but like learning the other characters, the various Green Lanterns, the various Flashes, their backstories, their lines. I don't know everybody, but I never feel lost even when they introduce a bunch of new characters that you don't remember or you couldn't pick out of a lineup, or who are just totally 100% new. They introduce them in such a way so you almost immediately understand them and what they want and what they're going for and how they are driven through the plot. You get a lot of that here, where you get Orion and you get Red and Blue Lantern. He has both red and blue power. You get some Metron stuff. After we get through New Genesis, the snowball is rolling, baby. It's rolling. So Nightwing carries us through the last 4 episodes of the series, and it is so good and satisfying. I cannot emphasize enough. There were some elements in the second to last episode that I found to be a little misleading, purposefully. I didn't appreciate that, but that was one of those things where I got fooled. So like, and you may have heard me talk about this on the show, I was fooled by it. So I was very much like, how are they going to resolve this? And when it turned out to all be a trick, I was like, oh, bullshit. The rest of the episode is so good. Between the interactions with all the characters, the reunions between characters who haven't seen each other, the whole season, the emotional stakes and potency of the story is all very visible. It really ties off all its loose ends very nicely without keeping them all tied off. Again, you have these elements of the story that you're just like, oh, Jesus fucking Christ, good God, oh my God. They took a 12-year-old boy's brain and they put it in an apocalyptic machine. Jesus fuck. So like, you still have that kind of shit, which is one of the things that I love about Young Justice, is that we talk about abuse and we talk about family dynamics and we talk about religion and we talk about sexuality and we talk about gender and we go through all of this. There's an entire section about this, about drug abuse and about mourning and about seeking help or pushing away friends. All the storylines are impactful and you feel for all the characters. At the end of the day, it all gets through and it's all really great. I cannot emphasize enough. If you haven't seen Young Justice, go and check it out. If you have seen Young Justice, definitely check out Phantoms, because holy shit, it's the best thing since Outsiders. It's great. Both are great, both are unique, both are their own damn thing, but holy shit, are both worth checking out. So that's where I'm going to leave you off today. My name is Alfred Jutsum. This has been Nerd Pod Generations on YouTube, As always, come and check us out on our podcast. We just finished covering the Tolkien movies, so that's a great time if you want to come and join. My lovely wife Kelly joins us for those episodes. We're going to be reviewing Part 2 of Stranger Things and the finale of Miss Marvel and the finale of Strange New Worlds. I may have cried. Come back, check out the podcast. It's a great time. And in the meantime, like and subscribe on YouTube and come back for more reviews, friends and enemies. Until next time, we'll see you when we see you. Have a great time, friends and enemies.